Hey guys, on today's show, we're going to be discussing some stuff about parks on the air. I've talked about this a little bit before, but from a viewer's question, we're going to discuss today buying your first radio for doing POTA, or what you should look for and the best deals or best radios for doing parks on the air. That's right here, right now on Ham Radio for Non-Techies. Welcome back to Ham Radio for Non-Techies, guys. My name is Scott. My call sign is KI5NPL, or Kilo India 5 November Papa Lima. And like I said, I want to discuss today about buying your first radio for doing POTA. A lot of people get into POTA. Usually it's going to be people that have the general class licensing. If you're a technician, you have very limited HF privileges. You can still go do stuff with parks on the air, or maybe go out with somebody who has a general or higher license, and using their call sign, get accustomed to doing parks on the air, and get used to doing the pile-ups and the hunting and activating and stuff. But from a viewer question, like I said, somebody had asked me, what are some good radios to get? What should be your good first radio for doing POTA? And I was like, I thought about that. I was like, well, there's so many radios out there. I mean, you can use almost any radio you want, but I try to instill upon you guys to, follow the buy once, cry once. I'm not going to give you guys crap radios to go and purchase and then have it fail on you a couple months down the road, or something, have a problem, and come back to me, well, you recommend this radio and it sucked. So I'm trying to only find really good radios that are going to live up to my standards, at least. And they're not always going to be cheap. HF, once you get to the HF level, your purchase prices of things kind of goes up a little bit. There are ways around it. There are some smaller and cheaper radios out there, but some of the better radios are going to cost you a little bit more money. Okay, so let's start the presentation by going over to my desktop here. So, best radios for POTA and buying your first POTA radio. I want to go over the best options out there. Like I said, there's a lot of things you can choose from. How much you should spend, we'll go over some of that. Modes of operation is going to determine what radio you buy, and pretty much your end goal. So you need to have some of this stuff in mind when you're thinking about doing this. So parks on the air, or POTA, you have 5,760 plus parks in the U.S. to choose from. So that's a lot of parks. So first of all, if you're going to be doing parks on the air, there's no shortage of parks to go to. So POTA is just one of the many activities you can get involved with in ham radio once you're licensed. As I said, it's more likely that you're going to do POTA when you're a general or an extra, more so than you are as a technician. But you can still do it as a technician, either by using the limited privileges you have on the HF frequencies you have privileges on, or by going out with somebody who has a higher license and using their call sign to kind of learn and acclimate yourself to the whole parks on the air thing. So to get involved, obviously you're going to need a radio, some sort of power supply, an antenna, and a way to log your contacts. That's the most basics of it. You can add on to it from there, like I have, and you'll see pictures later on where I've show you one of my setups. I do still contend that the antenna is the most important part of any radio operation. You can get any HF radio out there. It's only going to be as good as the antenna you're using, and you don't have to spend thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars on an antenna. There are other options out there, and I'm going to give you a couple suggestions for antennas that I think will make you guys very happy. So with that being said, you're going to need a radio that will suit your needs to do what you want to do while you're out in the park. So there's different modes of operation, like we said, and you got to kind of figure that stuff out. So things to consider here are looking at the whole picture as far as cost. It's not just the radio. Like I said, when you buy the radio, you also have to have an antenna. You got to have other gear and things like that. So make sure that's in your budget before you go off and buy a radio. You go off and buy a $1,000 radio and you got no money left for the other things you need, then it's just going to prolong the amount of time it is before you get out in the park and actually do something. Are you planning on primarily doing single sideband and voice? You're going to be doing Morse code or CW. You're going to be doing digital. You'll be doing all three. So figure these things out. Most of your radios out here, most of the radios I've got on here will do all of this. But just make sure that, certain radios might need an additional piece of equipment in order for you to do digital, whereas a lot of the other ones will have it all built in and ready to go. You just plug it in and you're on the air. Do you prefer a full setup or a minimalist setup? So by that, like, I bring out a full setup. I bring a whole lot of gear because I'm driving out to the park. I'm parking the car. I'm less than 25 feet away at a park bench and setting up all my gear so I can bring out more stuff with me. If you are doing stuff like maybe doing parks on the air and maybe also doing SOTA or summits on the air, and you're going to be carrying stuff and humping it up a mountaintop, you're not going to want to carry a large radio, a big battery, and all that stuff. You want to keep it very minimal and keep it very simple. So you need to decide what you want to do, or if you want to do both, you can. It's your money. You can do both. Will you be operating in the 50 to 100 watt range, or do you want to operate mostly QRP? QRP is fun. I've got a QRP radio, or I've got a couple QRP radios, and they're great, but it does make it a little bit more difficult sometimes depending on where you are and how propagations work in that day to reach other contacts. Sometimes they won't hear you even though you hear them. So if you like the challenge of QRP, then QRP might be the way to go. And for those of you who don't know, QRP is 20 watts or less. So if you get a radio that's 20 watts or less, that's generally what QRP means. People argue that, like, oh, no, QRP is 5 watts. Oh, QRP is 10 watts. 20 watts or less is fine, all right? All your other radios are generally going to operate in the 100-watt range, like your 7300s and other stuff like that. So decide on what you want to do. There are cost differences to both. There are some 20-watt radios that are inexpensive. There's some 10-watt radios that are super expensive. We're going to go over all that. Are you going to incorporate SOTA as well, hiking up mountains? As I said, if you're going to be going up a mountain or doing an extensive hike somewhere, you're not going to want to be carrying 50 pounds of crap on your back just to go make some contacts for a couple of hours. So you're going to want to minimize that and keep it really, really light and keep it very efficient so you're not killing yourself getting up and down wherever you're traveling to. Okay, so my top 3 picks, getting right to the punch here. The good radio is going to be a Yaesu G90. I consider it QRP because it's 20 watts or less. And it runs, at the time of this recording, it was $450, pretty much all the retailers out there. It does all the modes, single sideband, CW, AM, and FM. The power output, like I said, 20 watts. Can be used for digital FT8, etc. But I think you have to have, if I remember correctly, I think you have to have an extra little module to hook that thing up. I might be wrong on that because I don't own one. I got a colleague of mine that has one, and that's what he uses. Detachable face on this thing, so you can build a Go box if you want to set this whole thing up inside like one of those Harbor Freight Apache cases. You could actually take that face off and mount that in one place while you have the body of it underneath with all your other gear and have it all, clean and nice looking. So you have some options with this. It has a 1.8-inch screen. And I'm not sure. I don't think it's a touch screen. I think everything's done on the menu with the menu buttons. It does have a record option because a lot of times when you're going out and doing POTA, if you're having a hard time getting anybody at first, you don't want to sit there and have to constantly call out CQ on your radio. So what you can do with these radios, and a lot of these radios here will do this, is set a pre-recorded message that has your CQ call on it, and you just push a button and sit back. Then if somebody responds to you, you can click and turn off that mode and start activating. This one does also have a built-in tuner and comes in at 2.2 pounds. So it is one of the lighter ones you're going to see of the radios we're talking about till we get into more of the QRP stuff. But this is one option for you. And at $450, it is a reliable radio. It doesn't have all the features that I like as far as ease of use and things like that. But if you're on a budget and you want to just get out there, this is reliable. A lot of people have them. They've been around for a while, and they're good, reliable radios. An upgrade from that for an extra couple $100, well, 190 bucks? Yeah, something like that. My math might be off. A better solution to me would be a Yaesu FT-2980. Same thing, same modes, except now you're at 100 watts, and this thing's about the size of a car stereo, a single DIN car stereo. So it's really small and portable. Can be used for digital FT8 right out of the box. It does not have a tuner unless you're using the ATAS 120 antenna, which is more of a mobile antenna you mount in the back of your car. Menu system is a little bit of a pain in the butt because you got to go through all these different menu things to get to stuff. But once you kind of set it up, it'll just work. And it's a very reliable radio. It's a very good radio. I own one. It's what's in my Go box, and it has. I've gotten tons of contacts with this thing, and to this day, it still works great. I just have other preferences, which I'll get into with the next radio. Also, does come with a record option. You're now at 4.18 pounds with this one, so it's a little bit heavier. And again, consider the fact you're going to be carrying a lot of other stuff depending on how you're going to operate. Whether you're going to be operating a couple feet from your car, who cares? Bring whatever you want. You're going to be humping up a mountain. You're going to need to find out what you want to carry. And this would be, I've seen people do soda stuff with one of these and a battery and a simple antenna, and they're fine. So it is still a portable radio, and it is a little bit smaller. Actually, it's a lot smaller than the G90 as far as case size. So the best, in my opinion, in my personal preference, the best all-around radio is going to be the ICOM IC7300, coming in at $1,150 at the time of this recording. And again, all the same modes, 100 watts, can be used for digital, except now you have a 4.3-inch touchscreen with a nice waterfall. You can totally customize the colors of it and how it looks and everything like that. Very easy menus to get through and navigate to. Built-in tuner, record option just like the other ones, but the downside is it is 9.2 pounds, coming in almost at 10 pounds. So it's a little bit more of a bulky rig to carry around with you. But again, for what I'm doing and the way that I operate on Parks on the Air, this works fine, and I'm completely happy with it. It's just a fantastic, fantastic radio. I can't say enough good things about it. Actually, I liked it so much, and I've said this before, I like this radio so much that I actually bought two of them because I didn't want the inconvenience of having to unplug the one that's in my shack to put it in a box to bring out to the park. So I have one that sits in my shack permanently. I got another one sits in a box ready to go when I want to go out and do parks in the air. I just grab it, and I'm on the road. Now, let me bring up something else here. At the time of this recording, which is October 27th, 28th, I don't know what day it is, we're coming up on the holidays. And a lot of these companies are going to be running Black Friday sales and things like that. So a lot of these prices you're seeing here are going to be a lot lower. So if you're on the market or want to start looking for something, now would be the time to start saving. Actually, September would have been a better time to start saving, depending on how much you make on it. You can put away for this kind of stuff. But you're going to have really good deals on radios coming up here for the holidays. So keep that in mind. If you're on the market for a radio, shop around and look at all the different places. You've got Gigaparts, you have DX Engineering, you got Ham Radio Outlet, you got Main Trading Company, you got all the big players out there, and they're all going to have sales. They're going to have sales on all kinds of stuff. Shop around, shop against all of them, find who's got the best bang for the buck, and go with that company, and you'll be good to go. Okay. So that was my top 3 picks. So other radios, QRP and CW radio options. So other radios, the only reason why I put the FT-991 on here is because it's a great radio, okay? It's a great radio. But for $1,230 and 100 watts, it not only does HF, it does VHF, UHF. The only reason why I didn't put that in my top 3 is because, one, I prefer the 7300 over the 991, and the menu system on this is kind of like the 891, a little bit difficult to get through, but you have a nice touch screen on there to see all your stuff. Nice waterfall display, very powerful radio. And the other reason is that you don't do a whole lot of Parks on the Air doing VHF, UHF. So if you don't have a reason to have that extra mode in there, or have those extra bands for VHF, UHF on a radio, it's not worth spending the extra money for it. So that's the only reason why I really didn't put that in there. The next radio here is the ICOM's IC705, coming in at $1,350. This also does AM, FM, VHF, UHF, single sideband, CW, HF, and just all these different modes and bands and everything. It's an all-mode, all-band radio. And it comes in at 5 watts on its own, or if you add an additional battery to it, it'll now go up to 10 watts on your power operation. Very good radio, extremely small. If you're going to be doing soda and stuff like that, this might not be a bad idea to bring up because they have backpacks for it. Or if you watch one of my other previous shows, I showed you the backpack that I used that was a heck of a lot cheaper. And this will fit in there with a 9-amp-hour battery or something like that and a little antenna, and you're ready to roll. You can pop up anywhere, and this won't be a burden on your back trying to carry it up a mountaintop. But it does come with a much heftier price tag. So that's something to consider if you're in the market for that. But these are all QRP radios at this point. So if you want the challenge of QRP, great. Get one of these. If you don't want to mess with that, then you might want to consider one of the larger 100-watt rigs I showed you prior. The next one here is a Lab 599, and this is a very, very good radio from people I've heard that have them. Very fantastic. They're waterproof. They're rugged. Again, you're at $1,300 for a radio that only does 10 watts, and it's HF only, I believe. Again, I'm not going through a lot of specs on these radios because you can look these things up. You can always reference back to this video and go look up something if you want more information on it. I'm just trying to give you the basics and show you what's out there. So again, this one does all HF, 10 watts, but $1,300. Super small, super lightweight, very easy to carry around. But you know, does the convenience of those conveniences justify the expenditure? That's what you got to go through. Now we're getting into some other stuff here. The Eleanor Precision Mountain Topper 4B. This comes in at $350. It only does 4 bands, 80, 40, 30, and 20. It's a 5-watt CW only radio. So if you're into Morse code, you really got you love Morse code, this would be a great radio for you. The downside is, and it comes in at half a pound, 8 ounces. The downside is they're having supply issues, and if you want to buy one, you kind of got to get on a list or kind of pay attention to their websites. When they post up that they've got a couple, they sell out in minutes. Not hours, not days, minutes. And I think they're starting to bump up their production a little bit from what I read on their website, and hope they're going to have more in December, and then in January, February, it's supposed to be putting out a lot more after their expansion to get more radios built and have them out there. Great little radio, very reliable. I've seen a lot of people that have done reviews on these things. A couple of my friends have them, and they love them. But you got to get your hands on one, which is the only hard part. So if you're really into CW, that's a good option for you. Okay, next one here is a biggie, but I wanted to put in here. It's kind of like the Rolls-Royce of radios, and that's the Elecraft KX3. Coming in anywhere between $1,000 and $2,800, depending on the features you get, what it comes with. You know, you can totally custom build these things, get them as a kit where you can build it yourself. Elecraft has a lot of options, but they're also very, very pricey. But with that priciness, you're also getting a very good quality. These come in all mode, 10 watts max. You're about 18 ounces now for this thing, so a little over a pound. But they have a lot of really good options. They're very, very good radios. I mean, Elecraft's been around. They're made in America. Just a very reliable, very good, well-made radio, but you're going to pay the price for it. So if you're on the market for that, you got a budget for that, this will do everything you want to do. If you look at the bottom of this one down here, this is actually an attached paddle to do Morse code right off the radio there. So really cool little radio. The last one here, this comes in at the cheapest on my list, is the SW3B QRP CW radio. It only does 3 bands, 40, 30, and 20. It's 5 watts max, 6.3 ounces, and comes in at $188. Cool little radio. Again, if you're hardcore on doing CW, or you want to do POTA, or you want to do SOTA operations, this would be a fantastic radio to have. Fits in your pocket, throw another key in your other pocket, have an antenna in the other pocket, and you're up and doing your thing. Like I said, at $188, you really can't beat that. Okay, so that's my choices there for other radios, QRP and CW options. Let's move on to accessories, because I told you before, you're going to have accessories for these things, and let's just cover it one at a time here. Logging. You can do logging various ways. Paper and pencil, doesn't cost you anything but a notepad and a pencil. A tablet or phone with an optional Bluetooth keyboard, which is what I use out in the field. I've got a nice Samsung 10-inch tablet that has nice high resolution because we'll get to it here yet, but I have a certain app that I use for that. And I've got a Bluetooth keyboard set up so I can have one hand ready to go and one hand, typing out the call signs and information as I'm having my exchange or my QSO with somebody on Parks on the Air. Laptop is another option. And I know a lot of the YouTubers out here talk about Micro Center has these Evolve 3 laptops that are $59.99. If you have a Micro Center nearby, this is great. If not, you might have to go look elsewhere. And I think I've seen them as high as $100 a pop. But it comes with Windows 10. It's an 11.5-inch screen. Really, it's not the best laptop in the world. But for what we do in ham radio, it'll load all your ham radio apps. It'll do all your logging stuff, do everything we do in ham radio. You're not going to be watching videos and playing, high-end games and doing all kinds of, processor-heavy things with this. But for what we use the ham radio apps for, it's going to be perfect. and it charges on 12 volts, so you can literally plug this thing into one of your Bioenno batteries down the road, or you can plug it in your solar system if you got a solar panel thing and charge it up that way. So it's got different options that make it really attractive for most people, aside from the $59.99. You can't even buy a copy of Windows for $59, all right? So keep that in mind as an option. So that brings me to my final thing here for logging, which is using hammers. And hammers is a $5 one-time fee if you're using it on a iOS or Android, and it's free if you're using it on Windows, Mac, Raspberry Pi, or Linux. So I've got it on a couple of my laptops. I've got it on my phone. I've got it on my tablet. The $5 is worth it. They're constantly making updates and doing new things to the program to make sure that it stays ahead of the features that they want to have on there, and they're constantly adding more new stuff to it. If you want to do parks on the air, hammers is going to be the way to go. Hands down, number one, best there is. And I'll argue with that all day long. You might have your own stuff you want to use for logging. This thing is cool because of all the features that it has. And I think I've done a video on that before. If you go back and watch, I show some demonstrations of what hammers is able to do with the map showing how you propagate it out and where you all the people you've reached. It's got a lot of really cool features to it, as well as you can set it up to bring in, if you want to hunt people, it'll let you know who's online, what band, what mode, and you can go hunt people if you get tired of doing your activations. The next thing, and this is a big thing for me, is to tune or not to tune. I personally prefer resonant antennas. I don't have time to drag out a tuner with me. Now, although my 891 rig, because it's in a big go box, almost big gator cases, I do have the LDG Z100 tuner, but I rarely use it because of the antennas that I bring out with me. So 99% of the time when I'm operating, I have a resonant antenna. So what is a resonant antenna? Well, the ones down here, my recommendations are going to be a DX Commander Expedition, which runs about $235 plus shipping and handling. Super fast shipping. If you order this thing on a Wednesday, you'll have it at your house by Friday. KM4ACK has great end-fed half-wave antenna kits. The kits are fantastic because you get to build it, which gets you to learn about antenna building. You get to learn soldering if you haven't done that before. And at the end of it, you get a killer antenna that'll handle 100 watts or whatever and do a lot of bands. You can always modify the length of the wire to expand the bands you want to reach out on. For $39, the KM4ACK end-fed half-wave is an absolute steal. I have a couple of them. They're fantastic. I recommend them. And like I said, you don't have to spend a lot of money. If you don't want to get the DX Commander right now, start off with one of these other smaller kits and work up to the DX Commander. You know, that's the way to go. That'd be the way I would do this. For more of you SOTA guys, the K6ARK end-fed half-wave, which is about the size of a quarter. I mean, it's a little tiny thing. Again, it's a kit, and $25, a little bit more monotonous to build because you work with such small parts. You have a little tiny capacitor, surface mount capacitor, about the size of a grain of rice you got to solder on. But, you know, look, I did it. I'm not the world's greatest soldering person or electronics guy, and I'm not sure as hell not the guy to ask about it. But this was a fairly fun build for me, or a fairly simple build and a fun build for me. And it's a great antenna, you know, for what it does. If you're going to go doing QRP, killer antenna. Next one here is going to be a Pactena Mini end-fed half-wave. This is kind of like a unicorn because sometimes they're around and sometimes they're not. You really have to go to pactena.com and go into the antennas, look for their mini end-fed half-wave, and see if they have them in stock. Again, kind of like the Mountain Topper radio. When these come on the market, they last minutes because they're so popular, they're so good, they're so well made, and people want them. They sell out really quick. And, you know, when I bought mine, I think it was a little bit cheaper than that. I think they're running about $99 right now. So if you have an option to get one, it's definitely something to have in your arsenal. It's definitely a good antenna to add to your kit. You will use them. Even if you had all these other antennas like I do, you'll pick one based on what you want to do that day. So the next one here are some of my favorites is the spark plug antennas. They come in two different sizes, a 50 watt and 100 watt. I'd say just go for the 100 watt and get it over with unless size is an issue. It's not really that much smaller for the 50 watt one, but they're both killer antennas. No building here. I mean, it comes a little bag. You got to go find your own wire and have an analyzer to tune it up to the bands you want to use it on and bring it out in the field, and it just works. I did do videos on that. I think it was called 2 antennas, or 3 parks, 2 antennas, and something like that. Go look that video up and watch, because I show you what I've done with those different spark plug antennas. The last one here, again, like for the 891, I know it's supposed to be mounted to a car, but I'm betting you could probably find some way to rig it up and have it mount to something you could have out at Parks on the Air with you, is the ATAS 120, and that comes in at $350, being the most expensive of the antennas that I've shown you here. This one's cool because it works specifically with the 891. It doesn't work with any other radios, made for the 891. And it will talk to the 891, and they have a conversation back with one another. It'll tune itself to anything you want, any band you want to go on. Absolutely fantastic, killer little antenna. To see more of a demonstration on that, look for K at MRD. Mike did a video recently on the ATAS 120, and he did a really good explanation of how it looks and how it works. He actually, I think he tore it apart and showed you what it looked like on the inside. Go check that video out. That'll be a way to let you know if you really want one. But, you know, at $350, again, we're looking at a higher price. Again, if it's in your budget, great. If not, then you got to find an alternative. But I think I provided you guys plenty of alternatives here that you can mix and match things to find something that fits your budget specifically. Now, again, I didn't go into this, but we also need to talk quickly about power. And I've done lots of videos before. I'm not going to go into it right now. I've done lots of videos on Bioenno power batteries. They are hands down the best, #1 batteries you can buy on the market. They have the longest lifespan. There's various options from, like, I think, 3 amp hours up to 150 or 200 amp hours. So you have a lot of options out there for their batteries. And the guys that run that are very, very well respected within the ham radio community. And I would not waste my money on anything else. If you're going to buy a battery, buy once, cry once, go with Bioenno. So with that, I think you guys have a basic idea of what I'm trying to convey here. So the bottom line is, there's no shortage of radios to choose from. There are hundreds of radios out there, all right? But there's also a finite amount of radios. It's not like there's new radios being made every month. You have your own choices. You have to go kind of look around for what you want to buy and what's going to fit your situation. Some are readily available, as I say here, and some require patience. You got to get on a waiting list, or just kind of wait till they pop up and be ready to buy when they do come up. So get what best suits your needs and your budget. Leave room for accessories. Don't forget batteries. Okay, so I did put this in here. A Bioenno, if you're using a 100-watt rig, a Bioenno 12 amp hour or 15 amp hour battery will suit 90 to 95% of you out there for a day trip of doing POTA. If you're doing QRP, you can go much smaller with a 3, 6, or 9 amp hour battery, because you're not bringing out as much power with you. Now, you know, if your radio only does 5 or 10 watts, a 3 or 6 amp hour battery is going to last you a while, especially if you're just doing CW. So anyway, my bottom line is, don't overthink it. Get out there, enjoy nature, play radio, and have fun with this. And below here, you can see basically, this is an example of one of my setups. This is my setup for when I go out and do POTA. I've got a little table I bring out if I can't find a picnic bench. I've got my 7300. I got my 15 amp hour battery in the back there. If I'm running multiple antennas, I got my little antenna switch. I bring out a couple antennas with me. I've got my tablet with this little stand for it. And I've got that accompanied with a Bluetooth keyboard on a nice big large mouse pad that I bought. And I think these are like $5 or $6. Go check my Amazon store down below in the links. A lot of the stuff's down there. You can go get all these things and have a nice setup. And of course, I bring out my analyzer sometimes, depending on what might happen, or if an accident happens, I got to redo a repair in the field. I may want to be able to analyze my antennas and make sure it's tuned up properly. So that is pretty much it, guys. Get back to my camera here. I hope you really enjoyed this. I hope it helps you to decide what you want to use, or what radios you want to buy if you're going to be going out and participating in Parks on the Air. It's a very, very fun facet of our hobby, and you can make a lot of great contacts. You meet some new people, and it's kind of cool, you know, when you're out there doing it, and just, you know, you're calling CQ. Yeah, you'll get people on the East Coast, you get people on the West Coast, you get people up in Canada, but then every once in a while, propagation is at that perfect point, and somebody from France or Belgium or the Azores or South Africa or Japan or Hawaii or Australia, somebody pops in there out of nowhere and you get a DX contact from out of the country. That is a very exciting thing. My biggest, one of my highlights for when I was doing POTA was I actually got this guy. He's a hunter. He comes on quite a bit. He's up at North Pole, Alaska. And I had really hard time getting Alaska. Actually, it was harder to get Alaska for me than it was to get New Jersey. So, but I did finally get this guy up there, or he found me or something. And that was it was just a nice thrill. So, going out there and playing Parks on the Air and participating in this and getting to know your radio, getting to know your gear, figuring out what works, what doesn't, and adjusting accordingly. That's what this is really all about. And I think if you give it a shot, if you have not done Parks on the Air before, I think this would be a really, really good way to get you into it. If you have a friend, if you're not really sure about it, find one of your friends or find somebody in your area that does that and see if they'll, let you go out with them and kind of see how they operate. Learn about the stuff. I guarantee you're going to have a lot of fun with it, especially when you get your first pileup. If you've never had a pileup before, you have 30, 40 people trying to contact with their call sign all at once, and you got to pick out 2 or 3 letters you hear so you can get that first contact while the other guys wait. That's a heck of a rush there. So I think you'll really enjoy that. Anyway, guys, if you like this show here, please give me a thumbs up. Down below there is a subscribe button. Subscriptions really help out, support the channel. If you want to further support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon group. And I think I got to buy me a coffee or buy me a beer down there as well. Anything helps right now. I'm trying to keep the channel running up and going. I've actually had to go back and start doing some other stuff recently with my web design business because this thing was kind of faltering here. So that's why you really haven't seen much of me. So please consider subscribing. I'm about to approach a big number here on subscribers. I'm going to do a special for that, and I'll let you guys know more about that as we get closer. But until then, guys, I really appreciate you sitting down and watching. If you have any questions, contact me. Remember to check out hamradiofornontechies.com, which right there, hamradiofornontechies.com. If you have any questions, email me. Leave stuff in the comments here. I like to answer comments. I spend every morning answering comments for you guys, researching things to get you guys the best answers for your questions, and make sure that I'm, accurate with my information. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you coming out. We'll see you next time. My name is Scott. My call sign is KI5MPL. This is Ham Radio for Non-Techies, and we are clear.